And my topic is lifelong love and the developmental path to the ability to have lifelong relationships, which simply stated means that you're sharing lots and lots of good things, admiration, gratitude, compliments, and from that you have a optimistic mood, and couples could form, and possibly families with children. And instead of a divorce rate that I saw come about in my, that exceeds 40 and 50% and even more of unmarried couples. And so many kids get raised in broken homes. I saw that the path of lifelong love was deeply needed to be redescribed from the foundation up. And as Linda was saying about my background with Kundalini, I still am really the clinical director of the oldest spiritual emergence service in the world, started in 1976 by my friend Lee Sanella, who wrote the first book on Kundalini for the West. From a psychological point of view, it was called Kundalini Transcendence or Psychosis. Now it was reissued as Kundalini Experience. So I took over his work. It's been over 45 years, I guess, by now. And I've been guiding people all over the world in this Kundalini awakening. And what is it about? Well, what I needed to teach was the concepts that are out in the world of Kundalini as some kind of just an electrical storm that takes you over inside your body. That's very limited view. It's like 1% of the whole experience. Most of it takes place in the glands of the body, not just in the nerves. In fact, neuroendocrine is the name of anatomy that shows that the neurons and the glands are very fitted and commingle almost together in how they work. And so Kundalini really needed a much bigger name than just awakening. That's the common term. And I was persuaded by the data, particularly hormonal chemistry, to say that what we're dealing with is a puberty. Yeah, the first puberty is teenage puberty, 12, 13 years of age, 14, that time frame, when generally speaking, most people become fertile and they shift from a child identity to a teenager and then to an adult identity. And that, of course, was Darwin's great discovery too, that only those animals that reach puberty, that will their genes be passed on, have a chance at least to be passed on into the offspring. So being non-fertile, that means your whole lineage would end. Goes back not just your parents, but thousands of generations in the making for each of us. So for the fertility, puberty of the teen years, very powerful, and for all animals, for the evolution of the species to even continue life on the planet. But and then the sexuality that comes along with that teenage puberty is all that we know. That's all that's been mapped out, is this first puberty. In fact, the idea of a lifelong puberty that involves the hypothalamus, I don't know if you can see me now, but that's up here in what we call the sixth chakra area. The hypothalamus in science is known as the pleasure center. And that's from decades and decades ago, because when you stimulate that part of the brain in a rat, that's where the research was done, with electrodes, you can make the rat feel pleasure at any time and endlessly. So we know this area of the brain in humans and all animals, the hypothalamus, is the pleasure center. It corresponds, I think, with the sixth chakra in yoga. And it is capable of a maturation that we're now, I would say, in the last recent years, where science should be saying that we have a potential for a puberty of that part of the brain. Why do I say that? Well, we know oxytocin, which is the so-called love hormone, if you're aware of that. Oxytocin is secreted by mothers. When the baby in the womb is smiling, the mother and the baby both have high levels of oxytocin. And during nursing, oxytocin levels go up. And women nursing feel very happy. So that was the beginning of mapping out the hormone that corresponds with human love, you could say. Another hormone was called salivary immunoglobulin A, funny, kind of a long name, but in Sanskrit would be called madhu, which means also love or honey, the secretion of love, which comes from the hypothalamus and comes into the mouth as a sweet taste. And I could add in many more scientific terms that would hopefully you can read about in my articles. This is obviously just a short intro. If you look me up on the internet, my academia.com papers are all listed. You can get much more detail. But right now I'm just introducing, that the hypothalamus is capable of a puberty, and these chemistries, oxytocin and then serotonin, which is related to states of consciousness, dopamine related to pleasure, and all the sex hormones which relate to fertility, they awaken at a much higher level and give the human being a natural state, you could call it, of a psychedelic high. But this would be normal. And so this puberty, I believe, was normal for thousands and thousands of years. The third eye awakening is alluded to in many different religions, and the hypothalamus is light sensitive, so it fits to being a third eye, like the pineal gland, even more so, which is very light sensitive. And when you have these chemistries flowing in your bloodstream, you find that you're much more mature. In other words, like little kids can get angry and upset when their toy is taken away. And then as they go into their teen years and 20s and 30s, they get more comfortable. We all get more comfortable with disappointment, and our whole world doesn't fall apart, and we mature through the difficulties of life. Why so? Because the hormones in our body are getting stronger. We're not like a small child. As I'm saying, the teen puberty and then the maturation thereafter, we can handle life emotionally because our emotions are grounded literally in our hormones of our body. That's why medication will work. You can artificially change your mood with different psychiatric medications. But this is normal maturation. The problem is the map that the whole world is currently using only goes to the teenager level. Yeah, after Freud mapped out his map, it ended at the teen puberty. And the whole world is utilizing his completely limited map. And yoga with the other chakras beyond the second and third chakra, I can even talk like this because those words are in our vocabulary. Back in the 60s and 70s, very few people knew about these words. So now they're available, make use of those words. And so eventually what I'm saying, there's a way of life. I give you two aspects of it that will promote this puberty of the hypothalamus. And it's very simple. The one guidance I can give you on this short talk is to spend most of your time thanking your friends, admiring your friends, and giving them compliments, and noticing all the things in their life that you admire, that you are grateful for, the good memories, the good times, and you'll develop this puberty. Your hormone system will cultivate the moods of admiration and gratitude. And that's because that's what you're noticing and you're choosing to notice in life. And if you have to solve a problem, if someone upsets you, there's disappointment, you never get out of that sweet spot. You can talk about upsets, frustrations, things that didn't go well. And how do you do that? Well, when you bring up a problem, you're saying, thank you for bringing it up. And you're welcome that I brought it up. Thank you for appreciating the problem. And you talk very slowly about your problems, and you make eye contact so you know that you're being heard. You're always being way more heard than we think. And you have to look and watch your listener, and you notice they're hearing every word. And you have to thank them so they know that you see it. They don't know that you see that that you feel like they hear you. So you have to thank them repeatedly. And they thank you for seeing all of that. So when you're solving a problem, nobody gets triggered, no triggering and another triggering and another triggering, and then married couples even who loved one another, they have to break up. Even if they have newborn children, I've seen it, they break up because they can't slowly talk about their problems. They just flip out. So this is a way to say, as I was introduced, I've saved hundreds and hundreds, if not really through my books, thousands, and through people I don't know have read my material over the last 50 years. You know, it's getting to be millions because I've traveled all over Europe and Russia and India presenting, but keeping relatively low profile. So I doubt any of you have ever heard of me. But that's one of my big discoveries, is how to solve problems in a very courteous way. The opposite that my profession was teaching, to tell you the truth. Psychotherapy was teaching people just let it all out and let your emotions, you know, be angry and upset and all of that. It didn't work very well. In fact, it created a lot of ruined marriages. And so I practiced this other approach, and I was able to save many, many marriages that are still happy, to tell you the truth. When I get Christmas cards with newborn babies, photos, makes me very happy. So I'm passing on, the problem-solving side of lifelong relationships, how to do it. And the positive side is most of the time you're thanking each other. Like, I could thank you once again for listening to me. Thank you for tuning into this conference. Thank Linda for introducing me, for all the technical preparation for this recording. It takes a lot to put this on. And I want to be sure to thank everyone. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to connect with you. And if you want to connect with me, find me on Facebook. And I'll try to establish ongoing messaging and answering your questions, particularly if you read my books. Now, what starts happening, and you have questions, is at this lifelong puberty, one big change is sexuality. And I'll just give you one glimpse. It's a big, big topic. So this is like 0.5%, but it is an example of how different the sexuality is. That the chemistry of the brain comes into the mouth when this puberty happens. And that chemistry has salivary immunoglobulin A, many chemistries. And when it's exchanged between people who love one another, it's like you're drinking an aphrodisiac. It's like you're drinking a psychedelic of worship, moods of not just attraction, but awe. And the adrenaline is changed to such a high level that you feel awe. And it's like a divinity experience to kiss. They say kiss is sweeter than wine. And what this does is it allows genital intercourse for heterosexual couples. You start feeling that it's not really as powerful compared to this type of kissing. And like I said, I'm just barely introducing Khechari Mudra, just to add a little Sanskrit to it, where there's a puberty of the tongue and the hypothalamus. It's a gigantic topic. But in that kind of kissing, that becomes one of the central activities, there's many, of erotic life. And the side effect, believe it or not, is every child is conceived by consciously, because the sexual activity of intercourse is understood as a procreative act. Now, this sounds very Catholic, but they don't have this kind of kissing in their teaching. So it never caught on that just have sex just to make kids. But when you have this type of lifelong maturation that involves also problem solving, so you never have to worry about breaking up. You could fall in love with someone age 18 and be happy with that person until you die at 99. And you're maturing every single year in a deeper and deeper way. This is the full picture of maturation. Freud gave us a map that ends at age 13, 14 at the physical level. And we know in yoga about these higher chakras. What I'm mainly doing is mapping it out for you, that how this lifelong maturity happens. And it culminates in a puberty where your brain begins to secrete these very powerful hormones. Like when you were 13, you secreted a menstrual cycle or sperm cycle and became fertile. But this puberty is up in the hypothalamus, but it changes every cell in your body. In fact, you feel the DNA in your cells, for real. You feel it just like you feel your breathing, but you feel your DNA. DNA, though, is eternal. DNA can replicate itself and grow new cells that can grow new cells that can grow new cells. So when you feel your own DNA, you feel eternal creativity. And that is well worth this new type of life that I'm describing. So lifelong love becomes easy for people that have this puberty awaken. Divorce, it basically ends for like 90% of couples because problem solving is easy. There's interpersonal worship, and the kissing that I described is a new mode, and you can't ignore it. You're getting so high off of kisses and the worship and the play that comes from that. And it lets sexual intercourse. You don't have to have abortions because there's no accidental pregnancies. You don't even need contraceptives because there's no risk of when you have intercourse that a pregnancy will happen because the lovemaking has been put into this full, like I say, maturation of the brain orgasm that you're sharing. And when that happens, children are born into loving families. You do this 2 or 3 generations, and the norm is all families are intact. Kids aren't insecure growing up in broken homes, shuttled back and forth to divorced parents, forming gangs for substitute families. Drug abuse gets very low of 0 because your own body is creating the hormones of bliss and pleasure. The problems between men and women goes away. The Me Too movement is over because men and women now have the chemistry to have the emotions of worship and reverence for each other. And you don't even have these problems of that came up with harassment anymore, because that's all side effect of the immature map that Freud gave us that has us running around like teenagers, very confused. I could teach you more and more. We don't have time to go into the history of the sorrow of these many social problems. But the solution is what I wanted to share with you. The solution, and I was telling you that one part of it was admiring and putting a lot of admiration and gratitude into your conversations with family and friends. And I mean like half hour, 2 hours, day after day, week after week, thanking and appreciating and noticing all that people give you, putting it into words, and they likewise with you. So you feel very nourished and loved and appreciated in words. Then with your love partner, I described one practice of the kissing type of practice where you learn to revere and worship through kissing. And over the course of months and years, that helps awaken the hypothalamus and the pineal. And like I said, if you can want more detail, read my many books about it and articles, or contact me on Facebook and friend me, and I can carry on more. One more practice from yoga, for people who are into Kundalini yoga. The most important practice is to alternate nostril breathing. I won't teach it to you because it's now readily available, but it's closing one nostril at a time and breathing from left nostril, right nostril, back and forth, which is very profound. It looks kind of silly, sounds kind of simple, but it's my opinion, and it's the only yoga practice in the holy book of India called the Bhagavad Gita. It's the only yoga practice that's described. And it's for a reason, because it's completely essential and powerful to awaken this puberty, because you're balancing the nadis, the 2 channels on either side of the spine, from the base of the spine all the way to the top, to the hypothalamus, and then the middle channel can open. So this simple practice, half hour, once a time a day, twice a times a day, maybe 3 times a day. You try it for a couple of months, 3-4 months, to get yourself started. And you'll start, and you do it very slowly with a lot of gratitude. It's not like you just do the practice. You should feel appreciation for it as a divine gift and revere the practice. Do it very slowly. And after some practice, you open your eyes and you go, wow, this really changes my chemistry, changes my mood. I think more effective use of time than any other form of meditation. So I share that with you. And in a course of months and years ahead, that you may, and reading my material, and then you can read anything after you read my material. You can read the tantric texts in the original Sanskrit or in translation or Taoism texts, or the when thine eye becomes single, I think is in the Revelations of the Old Testament. You can start to pick up what I'm sharing with you, the way it exists in all the world religions. This puberty is what all the religions are really about, is the soul identity is the pineal puberty. The teenage puberty is ego, how to get along in the world and have your wants and desires for yourself, not like a little child where the mommy and daddy takes care of you. No, teen puberty, you get your own life in order. But after age 30, 40, 50, this pineal puberty, if you cultivate it, will happen in a full big way. You'll be capable of apology and forgiveness emotionally. It won't be hard. You won't be, oh, I'm faking it. Oh, I try to apologize, but I really don't mean it. I'm forgiving, but I don't want to. No, it becomes natural because you have the chemistry, the matured chemistry to do it. It's called virtue ethics, the ability to have virtues, which is a Sanskrit word, virya, which goes back to the naming of these hormones that come to us through the pineal gland, the hypothalamus in particular. So out of all that, millions of couples over time, hundreds of millions of couples are having lifelong marriages, and the world is a world of lifelong couples. And that makes all the cultures of the world be one family of millions of small families, because they all are happy in the same way, and all the people are mature. Right now, the world is immature at a physical level, so you have all kinds of problems because our body isn't mature. You can meditate till you turn blue in the face. You won't mature as deeply as what I'm describing. And if you look at all the traditions, Buddhism, Tantric religion, Advaita, non-duality, all these different Sanskrit named paths, Bhakti Yoga or Sufism or you name it, they're all really describing at a physical level what I was sharing with you. So I'm going to come to rest now with my talk and just say, look me up on Facebook, friend me, and we can carry on. This was just a little intro. And I want to thank you for your attention and thank Linda for giving me a chance to share with you all.